If I asked you to take some time and think about the thoughts that you've had over the years, how your thinking was formed, things that you thought about, who would you say was in control of your thinking? Would you say it was mostly you, or would you say that your thinking was heavily influenced by outside forces? The reason I ask this question is because this is something that I personally have done. I do periodically. I look back and I think about how I was thinking, what I was thinking about at certain points in my life, and I strive to understand a little bit better why I thought that way. A wise man said, whoever prescribes the diameter of your knowledge controls the circumference of your activity. What does that mean? Whoever controls the diameter of your knowledge. In other words, the limits. Whoever or whatever controls the limits of your knowledge actually controls your actions, the way you think. And in thinking about that, I realized that there's really three different influences. I guess that's a good word to say, influences. First is people. The people in your life can set limits on what you think might be possible, influence how you think. I look back at my own life and I look at, my family structure growing up, and I consider them just regular middle class folks. However, later on in my youth, as my parents became more involved in the church and those influences started to come in, and then the ones in the community, the standards that the community set, be they right, be they wrong, the culture, all of these things. And these are people that you respect, you got a lot of love for, a lot of respect for. So it's going to influence how you think. I mean, they must be right about a lot of stuff, right? Then there's your friends. And your friends often do the exact opposite. Sometimes they push you in another direction. And they'll have you thinking that the family that influenced you was wrong about a lot of stuff. But again, they're all just people. And you got people at work, people in your career field. Like I was in the military. We had a culture, a way of thinking, heavily influenced your thinking. But I said that to say this: the people that influence your thinking are also influencing the limits of your thinking. What you think is possible, how big the world is, your world is highly dependent on how broad your knowledge is. And those people can have a direct influence on that. Then you have your environment, your block, where you come from, where you exist, where you're living, your environment. Environment has a huge effect on the way you think. And again, a huge effect on what you think is possible. I used to wonder why people who were in gangs and things of that nature, how they were talking about the struggle, us versus them, to the death, fighting over some pavement, right? The block, this small piece of territory that you don't even own. Somebody else owns it, but you're fighting over it, right? And I used to think, well, why don't they just leave? But when you look at it, you realize that in some of their minds, it's not possible. This is their world. This is the limits of this world. They don't know anything outside of that world. So their knowledge has been limited by their environment. They're not reading books. They're not traveling. They're not going to see other things, other places, other kinds of people. So they're limited to that little world, and it's limiting their thinking. And since their thinking is being limited by their environment, their actions are too, because they don't know what's possible. I look back at my life. When I was young, I didn't know what was possible. I thought I did. I was exposed to a lot more than a lot of other kids. But even then, I didn't know what else was there. So I based my decisions on the available knowledge, and that's what controlled my actions. Made decent choices. Could have been better. Had I known better, they say you know better, you do better. But what's limiting the fact or the breadth of what you know? Your environment can do that to you. So you got people, you got the environment, and then there's the most important element of all, and that's you. See, in your mind, you can be the most limiting factor to your knowledge and thus your actions that can ever possibly be. You yourself. Do you have an open mind or do you have a closed mind? Do you know it all or are you ready to learn? There's a saying that says, you know what you know what you don't know, but you don't know what you don't know you don't know. And that's the kicker. I repeat that often to remind myself. I'm a little bit older now. I still don't know it all. Never will know it all. There'll always be something else to learn. But you got to have an open mind in order to be willing to suck that stuff up. And when you get that, it expands your knowledge. Therefore, it expands your opportunities, the possibilities, allows you to take better action. So do you have an open mind or do you have a closed mind? So I guess I said all of that to encourage you to do one thing. Take control. Don't let people, don't let the environment, not even yourself, limit your knowledge and therefore limit the possibilities and limit the actions that you are open to taking. So take that for what it's worth. And in any case, do something to make yourself better. Because if I know one thing, it's this. When we become better people, our world becomes a better place. Peace.